What's going on, homies? We are back with more Cosmonarchy. As per usual, every day a new cast. Subscribe for more. That's right, I hit you with the subscribe at the beginning of the video instead of the end. It's because I'm evolving. It's an interesting matchup here, with Neblime going to be our Zerg player, and Kasuga going to be our Protoss player. Kasuga, an upstart from Taiwan, if I'm not mistaken, has been gaming as a, let's say, a diehard new Cosmonarch, and has even signed up for Acropolis number 3's new Tribunal stage, where if you place top 2 in the event, you will automatically qualify directly into the Battlement stage, skipping those very prolonged gauntlets. Of course, there is single elimination, so let's just say you're going to have to be on your A game every series. Kasuga is our Protoss in the bottom right. I'm going to say he's our Mint Protoss, and he's going Gateway first. His opponent, Neblime, is in the top left as our Cordovan Zerg. There you go. Somehow I guessed that color correctly. Now, Neblime hasn't been playing Zerg for quite some time, but it's helpful for him to go up against Kasuga, kind of show him a little bit of what's going on in the matchup. Sometimes Neblime likes to off-race versus newer players to give him a little bit of a leg up. But as soon as he realizes that they're good players, he just goes back to his own race, which is Protoss currently. He is bracing himself for the arrival of the Ascozi, as iScript has actually been extended, courtesy of a recent update to pre-release. We're testing that ahead of the new game's release for the Tribunal stage, as well as a whole slew of balance adjustments. So we'll see what ends up happening here in this particular matchup, but if Neblime doesn't score Acropolis number 3 as a Protoss player, if he doesn't end up winning the trophy, the digital hypothetical trophy, then that's going to be some tough stuff, because that means he's going to have to be Protoss again instead of playing as a Scozy like everybody else. Kasuga's second gate is up and running, and, that does mean that he's going to be sending his first combat unit across. It is a Hierophant. I don't think he's actually going to get too much damage here, but he might end up forcing a couple of quads earlier than Neblime wants, as he is, of course, continuing to make workers. Popping an Ovaleth out, interesting. I don't know what the Ovaleth is for just yet. I suppose it might just end up being a scout. His Droleth has made it in there, and it's 2 Zealots coming out now. So that's kind of an interesting pivot here, where Kasuga very clearly wants to do something a little bit more aggressive. He's going to pick a single worker here with this Hierophant, it looks like, and Zethrakor, Quasilisks, those are starting up. But that should be a dead Droleth indeed. The surround comes out, but Kasuga is more than happy with getting a single worker kill, and now seeing what he can do as his shields recharge. 2 Zealots still marching across, and an Ardent Authority. Very fast stuff here from Kasuga, trying to double down. He even goes for the embassy behind it. We could see an Acantor drop later on into this match. A Hydra then already here for Neblime. He was allowed to get a lot of workers and kind of greed on a very low, very slow military buy. Looks like the Zealots are already starting to fall back. The Ovaleth gets caught by the Hierophant. If this is microed, it's actually really difficult for Neblime to escape. He's going to have to avert course, move back up a little bit away from some of the walkable terrain here, so Kasuga will not be able to finish the job on that. His Zealots go in to rejoin the Hierophant, which is kind of clever in a way, but he doesn't necessarily want to show them just yet. Embassy about to finish up, the Acantor about quarter of the way there, and the Ovaleth is taking a very distant path, but the Hierophant wasn't able to finish the job. We got Zethrakor's Quasilisks and an expansion coming for our Zerg player. Neblime from down under is going to be going for his Hydralisks. Droleth borrowed by the entrance, taking a page out of Shambler's book from way back in the day. And it looks like this build lines up such that the Acantor finishes in a similar time to the Envoy. Now, the problem is he's delayed his expansion for this. So I do think that this is an opportunity for Neblime to run away with the game economically, unless that Acantor does a ton of damage. And this Hierophant is all that stands between that Ovaleth and getting a scout of what's going on, especially if it comes in and sees Ardent and Embassy. Of course, you do have detection for the Ovaleth, so he will be able to click on these structures and see what's being made. The absence of something from the Ardent, it feels like the timing is already there. And so, what is the anti-drop going to look like for Neblime? I definitely will start to worry a little bit about Kasuga's positioning here. But that's just because he's kind of put himself in a situation where he needs to do damage with this Acantor drop. Reaction is very swift here from Neblime. He's going to dive bomb up the ramp, and that's a humongous amount of workers stacked up together. The Acantor gets unloaded, but it wasn't set to fire, so the dodgeball is good. And it doesn't look like any damage has been done at all. A little bit of lost mining time. Neblime will retask his workers, but that is a painful loss for Kasuga. Choking a little bit in that moment, it feels like. He's going to reinvest into another round. His witness has already spotted a whole host of Zerg units pushing through. Well, that's a little bit of an interesting establishment of rules. Neblime charging forward with a big portion of his army. He's making a couple more units, and he's kept a couple of quas back in the main base. So, in case there's a follow-up drop, the witness will finally reveal the burrowed worker. Shambler is destroyed. Love to see that. And a warden, this is going to make it really awkward to leave the base, by the way, but we'll see if Kasuga really needs to worry about that. He sent out another envoy. I love the sort of scouting line here from Neblime. He's even going to go for a drop as he tries to assail the front gates. I think between the Ecclesiasts and the Zealots, Kasuga should be just fine in this position, but what is he going to have that can deal with what we see over here? His envoy has slipped the net, but the Zeth drop is coming out, and right now Kasuga is biting on the bait. Neblime is going fishing, and he's going to get a couple of frags on those scribes, I think. Instead, he's going to drop down that Ardent. I don't know if that's the best choice since he only has 6 Zetricors. He's definitely forcing Kasuga to come back. Feels like some damage could have been done here. It doesn't really look to me like this Ardent Authority is going to fall after all. A little bit too much beef on it. HP and armor. Meanwhile, the Acantor drop. I don't think Neblime spotted that. Kasuga will be able to make use of it, but he's checking his front gates instead. His Zealots kind of awkwardly stuffed off to the side as the Cantor is going to go ahead and unload right in the mineral line, but Neblime has a chance to react. He's not doing so. This is a big whiff here from our Australian. 12 kills on that Acantor, and it ends up unloading. It looks like more frags will be found. Oh, only one. That could have been better. Targeting not quite there. This is the money shot. That's a lot of kills. 17 and counting. That Acantor still at large. Well, Neblime still has more workers than his opponent, so it's not exactly the end of the world. But you don't want to be put into a reset situation when you had tempo. You had more workers by a significant margin than your upstart opponent. Kasuga going to continue to pump the pressure. His Acantor will just heckle that. Oh, he actually forces a cancel. That doesn't feel like it was necessary, but Kasuga was going to, at the very least, commit his army a bit further forward. Love the arc that Neblime has created. A lovely concave, but he doesn't want to focus through this little ramp here, this choke point. These mineral fields aren't depleted yet, so they will still provide collision. Hydralisk catches, but Neblime is trying to focus down the envoy. Now he's going to see if he can pull back. The Spraith even whittling down that transport. So it's just the wounded Acantor with only 60 shield points and 11 health separating it. This feels like a fight that Neblime could absolutely win if he just let his units do their jobs, but he's too busy falling back in a time where he should be pushing forward and descending upon that Acantor with 25 frags to its name. This definitely looks awkward here. Kasuga getting a good amount of value. He's sending a couple more gateway units through, but the Hydra count is getting to the point where this push is dead. That Acantor might get one more shot off, but the answer is no. And Ecclesiast should end up dying to speed everything else up, and instead, another Acantor may just end up crawling to its death. It is at the very least on attack move, so it'll soften some units up, and yeah, he's going to see if he can speed away, or at the very least, bleed Neblime's Hydra count. So far, so good for our upstart Protoss player. You know, there's a reason why I gave him Class 3, guys. He's pretty solid. He's actually keeping Neblime on an off race, of course, back in a very interesting way. A couple of additional shells from the Acantor. They at least catch 3 Hydras, but that is not exactly cost efficient. No envoy was there to safeguard it. And the third base will go down at the mineral heavy position, which I don't think Neblime is anticipating, as he's already targeted that 3 o'clock position for his units, but double expanding behind it. So I still think that Neblime's macro is looking pretty solid, but his tech is maybe a bit more limited than he would like. That forward pylon will only reveal the presence of the Zerg army, as the third base has indeed been discovered. That will force Kasuga to respond. He might try to crunch around this, but it's not really going to work out too well for him, as the Hydras are just way too slippery to be caught by a couple of slugs. Well, I say that, but the shells are definitely going to reign supreme if allowed to connect. The ski-backed only now coming online for Neblime. His Zerg instincts have definitely atrophied, I think it's safe to say, but that's not to say that he doesn't have a chance still in this map. He's actually proving that he's still got a little bit of that instinct of what to do. as Zerg. He picks one a Cantor with just Zeth Quaz, not exactly the first choice that most Zerg players have when going up against the Acantor, but you can do a lot with a little. You just know when to right-click. I mean, when to stutter step, so to speak. All right, Kasuga, we can check in with his base. His prostration stage will be the tier 3 of choice. He's capped his gases, you know, the ridges, as well as the, you know, 1 out of the 3 geysers that he has available. No, actually 2 geysers that he has available. His witness is pretty far forward, so he has some vision of where Neblime is at, but the first pariah is going to hit the ground running here for our Protoss. Neblime, on the other hand, I mean, as the witness dives in for a further scout, sees no tier 2 on the way, doesn't really have to worry on the Protoss side about any given tech, though Bactylisks are available. It's actually going to be Skithor cores. Neblime likes to be crafty sometimes, and I've seen Hamster do some similar vibes. The worker count starting to stretch ahead for the Zerg as the ridges are capped once again for our homie Kasuga. I'm just clicking around trying to wait for the plan to foment, because I don't know that Kasuga can really run away with the game with just a couple of pariahs and backing up his existing composition. Pariah Cantor can be pretty deadly, but you kind of have to take a prolonged fight, and I don't know that Neblime's going to allow that. At the very least, vision is there for the Protoss. Kasuga going to push forward. Good defenses already here, anti-dropping, etc. as the Skithor cores are hatching for Neblime. The witness will follow the army as it arcs up towards 12 o'clock. And actually, Kasuga's kind of preempting it with his army rotation instead of setting the pace of himself. He's going to go ahead and add a bulwark and a couple extra wardens to that third base. Doesn't really have any static defense up at the natural, right? He's got a couple of anti-air wardens. And I don't know that it's going to be quite enough for the Skithor core menace that is about to descend. But I guess luckily for Kasuga, silver lining for not being proactive on the map, he is here to catch this Skithor core push. Iris on the way for Neblime, finally using that tech as he raids the workers, and they're all stacked up on that seated. That's a lot of dead scribes. A lot available here for the Skithor cores. They are munching. This worker count was a hell of a lot closer. Neblime was in the lead, but still not to this degree. And that engram might even end up getting sniped. It doesn't look like it's a concern. The pariah will potentially shut this down, but oh, it can't quite get there. Kasuga has forced the issue. All the scribes are stacked up on the aquifers. You don't want to be doing that. Oh, and at least the engram is shelling a lot, but this is a lot of dead workers, man. He's now cut in half in terms of his worker count. The Skithor core is definitely paying for themselves. I understand now why Kasuga always says that he hates flying Zerg. He just hasn't faced them long enough times to know what the reaction really is. And look at this. Neblime's Hydras, I guess the witness lost track of them or something, because as of right now, they are actually going to pressure to see if they can't run into that natural. Tier 2 is hatched for Neblime. We'll see what tech he wants to go for on 4 bases, capping the gases, at least the ridges in that attempted third. That's actually his 4th, because it did get canceled by the Acantor earlier. 50 scribes to almost 100. Triple digits looms for Neblime, and the economy just gets to a point where it's unassailable sometimes. Restocking at the third base for our Protoss. He has, at the very least, he's, you know, nearing depletion in the main, so it's not the end of the world that he ends up losing a lot of those workers, but it's not as impactful as it could have been, I should say. It might actually be the end of the world. But Neblime's kind of caught in a tech transition right now. At the very least, he's evolving his defenses here at the double gas base, but he's also capping it, so it'll be some time before he can afford to really leverage a tier 2 army. And Kasuga has power behind his forces. This is one of those cases where Kasuga really didn't have much tempo on the map, since even though his army was stronger than what Neblime could fortify, he never really sent it anywhere that Neblime had to worry about. Early tempo was good, but he let off the pressure pretty quick, and I think that's going to be what Neblime uses to drive the last nail in the coffin. For our upstart Protoss, the witness will spot a big army off to the right-hand side, but there's one of equivalent size that may just end up descending on that third base or flanking on that army. You can see Neblime just cycling his units back and forth. But there's witnesses that can watch for both flanks. Kasuga, well informed, but even if you have the information, right, this is still a situation where you don't know what to do if you're Kasuga. You're caught between a rock and a hard place, constantly being bandied about by sirens almost on multiple sides. And I'm not talking about the unit, I mean mythologically speaking. With that witness getting sniped here thanks to the Avaleth's detection, Kasuga's been blinded, a black eye on the left side of the map. There's a lot of Zethra cores, and it looks like more expansions in the cards here for Neblime. But the Mind Tyrant up Tecton combo is what Kasuga's going to try to leverage. See if he can't fight back. The Ultrav Cavern on the way. A little bit ambitious for a Droleth to come down here, but Neblime wants to take every single base. And now the seesawing will continue. The second round of military is going to threaten, along with a whole host of these units as well. I don't know what quite ended up happening over there as far as ping goes, but a fourth base on the way, and it's just going to get crunched on multiple fronts, multiple sides. Feels like maybe Neblime could just take his forces off to the right and crush the natural or the third, but instead, it's going to be a sandwich of a sandwich. Who flanks the flankers? We got a war on 3 different fronts here. The Pariahs doing their best. The Cantors doing so much damage, but I think that Neblime's Vilgoricors have bought enough time to at the very least allow the Hydralisks to break through the rest. The Ecclesiast count is off the charts for Kasuga, though, and I don't know if there's any splash damage to deal with it. I haven't seen a single Bactylus this whole game, let alone any Lakizilisks. The Ultra Cores, they are not ready to be leveraged here. Vilgoricor, the only tier 2 that was really used in this game, and the Optecton has arrived courtesy of its Mind Tyrant master. It will be the Malefactor that Kasuga will try to use to push across the map. And this is the risk. If you have a weaker army, you can't take him on head on. You need to go around. You need to abuse the fact that you're more mobile, descend upon the unguarded positions, the paths less traveled, less fortified. Kasuga, having reduced the army so heavily, can now march across the map with relative impunity. Going after the Mind Tyrant is a good move. Let's see if Neblime can actually focus it down. Instead, he jumps onto the opportunity to clear these estranged Cantors in the middle of the map and isolate Kasuga's army. This could still turn an ugly direction for our Protoss, who's lost all of his heavy-hitting artillery. It's only the one Optecton that he's trying to use to convert as many of the Zerg to serve a new master as possible. Some of those Hydras are moving up to the top right. Kasuga going to try to shut down another base. Neblime has so much money, or should, but it's actually Kasuga floating a heavy amount of minerals at this point. He's trying to set up a 4th base since this attempt got shut down in the upside-down smiley face of Interior 6 o'clock. Zethracor's Convolisks. It's going to be a slow grinding defense here for Neblime, but if he does hold, if he doesn't lose bases... No, he actually concedes, calls GG. Kasuga can hardly believe he's bested Neblime. And you know what? I can hardly believe that he bested Neblime. That feels like it should have been our Australian Zerg's way to win. Left, right, and center. Well, I think there's a lot to learn about that. I do think that it was a mistake to try to crunch on the army, but I will offer a little bit of an olive branch to Neblime and Neblime lovers, Neblime enjoyers. It is something that, he hasn't played Zerg in a while. So does he know the army strength rather, of the threat level that Kasuga's army was actually going to pose there? Did he know he was actually going to get wiped? I think if he had known that, if he had consciously thought that that was a possibility, he would have done something different with his military. So a mistake, in my opinion, yeah, sure, but something that Neblime will have to mull over if he ever ends up playing Zerg in the future for practice games. Kasuga surprising us all with a very nice win there. So, hey, you can meet your heroes. You can win your heroes. As Kasuga sometimes says, you can win Neblime. That's what he wants to do all the time, apparently. So, listen, maybe Kasuga can do a PvP next. But, of course, he has to deal with Arbuz Budesh, another heated matchup rivalry between those two. Maybe we'll see some games between them later on. Subscribe for more Cosmonarchy if you're not already. And, of course, remember, we have that open tournament coming up. The Tribunal stage starts soon. The Gauntlet stage signups will open up immediately after. I'll see you guys very soon for more Cosmo. GG.